One of the biggest lies people believe about Stoicism is that it is about being nice, that a Stoic is simply calm, polite, harmless, agreeable, emotionally quiet, and easy to deal with. But that is not Stoicism. That is often just weakness with good manners. And the modern world loves to confuse the two, because a man who is soft, compliant, endlessly understanding, and afraid to offend anyone is easy to manage, easy to guilt, easy to pressure, easy to exploit. So people call that kindness. They call that maturity. They call that emotional intelligence. But very often it is not virtue. It is fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of disapproval, fear of being seen as cruel, fear of standing alone. Stoicism was never designed to turn you into a pleasant decoration for other people's comfort. It was designed to make you inwardly unshaken, to make you govern yourself, to make you act from reason instead of impulse, to make you harder to corrupt through anger, fear, pain, pleasure, praise, or insult. A Stoic is not weak. A Stoic is controlled. And there is a massive difference between those two things. Because weakness avoids friction. Control chooses its response. Weakness stays silent because it is afraid. Control stays silent because it has nothing to prove. Weakness submits because it wants approval. Control refuses because it serves something higher than social comfort. So in this video, we are going to dismantle one of the softest and most misleading ideas about Stoicism and look at what this philosophy actually teaches. Not niceness, not passivity, not performative peace, but discipline, clarity, restraint, courage, and the kind of calm that comes from strength, not helplessness. Part 1. Why people misunderstand Stoicism. The reason people misunderstand Stoicism is simple. They confuse outward calm with inward weakness. If a man does not overreact, they assume he is harmless. If he does not argue constantly, they assume he is passive. If he remains composed under pressure, they assume he lacks intensity. But composure is not the absence of force. It is force under command, and that is what many people fail to understand. A man yelling, proving, reacting, and emotionally spilling himself everywhere may look powerful to the immature mind, but he is not powerful. He is exposed. His emotions are on the outside. His triggers are visible. His ego is available. His behavior can be predicted and manipulated. A Stoic seeks the opposite. Not emotional deadness, not repression for the sake of image, but mastery. He wants to feel without being ruled, to see clearly without collapsing into impulse, to endure difficulty without becoming theatrical about it. This is why Stoicism can look quiet on the surface, but quiet does not mean weak. In fact, real power is often quiet because it does not need to advertise itself. The strongest people in the room are often the ones who are least desperate to appear strong. And Stoicism is deeply concerned with this distinction. It asks, can you remain stable when insulted? Can you act well when angry? Can you hold your dignity when disrespected? Can you endure pain without dramatizing it? Can you set boundaries without emotional chaos? That is not niceness. That is self-command. And self-command is one of the rarest forms of strength in the modern world. Part 2. Niceness is often a social strategy, not a virtue. Now this is where things become uncomfortable, because many people are not nice for moral reasons. They are nice because they are scared. Scared of tension, scared of being disliked, scared of being misunderstood, scared of losing belonging. So they smile when they should speak. They agree when they should resist. They apologize when they are not wrong. They stay available when they are being used. They stay soft because they do not know how to survive disapproval, and society often rewards this behavior. Not because it is noble, but because it is convenient. A person who is endlessly nice is easy to consume, easy to burden, easy to lean on, easy to control through guilt. This is why being nice can become a trap. It creates a counterfeit moral identity. You begin to believe you are good simply because you are agreeable, because you avoid conflict, because you make yourself easy for others. But virtue is not the same thing as pleasantness. A doctor cutting into flesh to remove disease is not being nice. A father saying no when his child wants something destructive is not being nice. A man refusing corruption, flattery, or emotional blackmail may not appear nice in the moment, but he may be acting with integrity, and integrity is worth more than likability. This is where Stoicism becomes sharp. It teaches that the good life is not built on public approval. It is built on alignment with reason and virtue. That means sometimes you will appear cold. Sometimes you will disappoint people. Sometimes you will refuse. Sometimes you will withdraw your availability. Sometimes you will say the thing that creates discomfort. Not because you enjoy harshness, but because truth is more important than image. And that is exactly where weak niceness and Stoic character part ways. Part 3. A Stoic does not live to be liked. One of the clearest signs that someone has not understood Stoicism is this. They still believe peace means being liked. But a Stoic does not organize his life around approval. He understands that public opinion is unstable, shallow, emotional, and often deeply irrational. The crowd praises one thing today and condemns it tomorrow. People admire confidence until it stops serving them. They admire honesty until it becomes uncomfortable. They admire boundaries until those boundaries are directed at them. If your internal compass depends on being liked, then you are not governed by reason. You are governed by social weather, and social weather changes constantly. Stoicism teaches something far more difficult. It teaches you to ask, is this right? Is this necessary? Is this within my control? Is this aligned with my principles? Not, will this make everyone comfortable? Will this protect my image? Will this keep me accepted? This shift changes a person completely, because the moment you stop worshiping approval, your decisions become cleaner. You stop over-explaining. You stop performing goodness. You stop defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop making your conscience answerable to the crowd. That does not make you cruel. It makes you free. And freedom often looks offensive to those who still live under the dictatorship of validation. A Stoic understands that being disliked is sometimes the cost of self-respect. Not always, not recklessly, not with ego, but sometimes. And anyone who cannot tolerate being disliked will eventually betray themselves to avoid it. That is not peace, that is dependence. Part 4. Calm does not mean harmless. There is another lie hidden inside this conversation. People assume that if a man is calm, he must also be harmless. That if he is patient, he must be passive. That if he is restrained, he must be weak. That if he does not retaliate emotionally, he must be incapable of force. This is childish thinking, because true calm is not the absence of strength. It is strength that has been disciplined. Anyone can be aggressive. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can become loud when hurt. That requires very little mastery. But to remain composed while fully capable of action, that is different. That is dangerous in the deepest sense, because a calm man sees more clearly. He wastes less energy. He is less predictable. He is not driven by ego injury. He chooses timing instead of reaction. He does not need to prove his power constantly because he is not uncertain of it. This is one of the reasons truly disciplined people often make others uncomfortable. Their restraint is mistaken for softness by fools until a line is crossed. Then people realize too late that silence was not surrender. It was observation. Patience was not weakness. It was control. And control is far more serious than emotional display. Stoicism aims at this kind of presence, not the presence of someone eager to dominate every room, but the presence of someone who cannot be easily provoked into losing himself. That kind of man may be peaceful, but he is not harmless. He can say no. He can leave. He can endure. He can resist. He can cut ties. He can act decisively without rage as fuel. And that is much more formidable than a person who only knows how to react. Part 5. Stoicism requires boundaries. A philosophy of self-respect must include boundaries, and this is one of the places where shallow people become disappointed with Stoicism, because they want a philosophy that tells them to be endlessly understanding, endlessly available, endlessly patient with dysfunction. But that is not wisdom. That is surrender disguised as morality. A Stoic understands that your time is limited, your energy is limited, your attention is limited, your life is finite. So not everyone deserves equal access to you. Not every argument deserves engagement. Not every insult deserves a reply. Not every relationship deserves preservation. Not every demand deserves compliance. This is not bitterness, it is discernment. And discernment is essential if you want to live according to principle instead of emotional pressure. Boundaries are not anti-Stoic. They are often the practical form of Stoic wisdom. A man without boundaries is not virtuous. He is porous. He leaks energy. He leaks focus. He leaks dignity. And people will always take more from a man who does not know where he ends. But a Stoic studies limits. He knows when to withdraw, when to speak, when to stay silent, when to refuse, when to disengage from nonsense. Not because he hates people, but because he respects what is valuable, including himself. And self-respect is not vanity. It is the refusal to participate in your own degradation. Part 6. Stoicism is about virtue, not image. One of the cleanest ways to understand Stoicism is this. It is not concerned with looking good. It is concerned with being good. That sounds simple, but the difference is enormous. Many people are image-based. They want to appear mature, appear kind, appear spiritual, appear emotionally intelligent, appear unbothered. But appearance is easy, performance is easy, especially in a culture where everyone is curating themselves for an audience. Stoicism cuts through all of that. It does not ask how you appear under ideal conditions. It asks who you are when tested. Who are you when insulted? Who are you when overlooked? Who are you when disappointed? Who are you when power becomes available to you? Who are you when doing the right thing costs you comfort? That is where character begins, not in aesthetics, not in self-branding, not in soft language and moral posturing, but in conduct. A Stoic may look kind, he may sound calm, he may seem gentle, but that is not the goal. The goal is virtue, and virtue is often much harder, sharper, and more demanding than niceness, Because virtue asks you to confront yourself before you perform goodness to others. It asks you to remove ego, to reject cowardice, to stop lying, to stop being ruled by appetite, vanity, and fear. That path is not always pleasant, but it is real, and reality is more valuable than image. Part 7. Why modern people prefer soft stoicism. Modern culture prefers a diluted version of stoicism, a version that is aesthetic, calming, quote-friendly, and socially safe. A version that says, be peaceful, be calm, let go, do not react, protect your peace. And there is some truth in these ideas, but once stripped of discipline, courage, responsibility, and moral seriousness, Stoicism becomes self-soothing decoration. It becomes a mood, not a philosophy. Because real Stoicism is demanding. It does not just tell you to calm down. It tells you to become accountable. It tells you to stop blaming the world for your lack of self-command, to stop worshiping comfort, to stop chasing praise, to stop fearing pain, to stop negotiating with weakness. That is much harder than just becoming nice. And that is why many people unconsciously prefer a softer version. Because softness can be displayed. Real discipline must be built. Soft stoicism is socially attractive. Real stoicism is often lonely. Because when you live by principle instead of appetite, you separate yourself from a great deal of normal behavior. You become less easy to tempt, less easy to flatter, less easy to recruit into emotional chaos. And that distance can make people project all kinds of things onto you. Cold, arrogant, detached, intense. Sometimes those judgments are wrong, sometimes they are partly true. But none of that changes the standard. A Stoic does not ask to be perceived correctly by everyone. He asks to remain correctly governed within himself. So no, Stoicism is not about being nice. It is not about being soft, agreeable, or endlessly pleasant so that everyone around you feels comfortable. It is about governing yourself. It is about refusing to be ruled by anger, fear, vanity, approval, and impulse. It is about speaking when necessary, remaining silent when necessary, walking away when necessary, enduring when necessary, refusing when necessary. Sometimes that will look kind. Sometimes it will look cold. But the point is not appearance. The point is principle. A Stoic is not harmless because he is calm. He is calm because he has learned not to waste himself on reaction. He is not weak because he is restrained. He is restrained because he understands the cost of undisciplined emotion. He is not living to be liked. He is living to remain aligned. And that is a very different kind of life. So the next time someone tells you Stoicism is just about being nice, remember this. Niceness often wants approval. Stoicism wants mastery. And mastery is far more dangerous than politeness.